So yes, looking at this, we can tell that the test manager is not needed that much anymore. But you can look at this table the other way around, of course, as well. And so in green are some of the activities that I say these are test management tasks that still have value. We're increasing the feedback from the customers, so we need to organize or test so we get customer feedback. It might be something nice for the test manager to do. We have more product risk analysis, more end-to-end testing. I think that's an important one. The end-to-end testing, the integration testing is something that many organizations are struggling with. We have more value-driven decision making. We do more production data usage. We have data-driven decision making. We even do auditing in order to improve our testing, to ensure that our testing is right or that we meet compliance things. All things that test manager could be doing or should be doing. And what they say, I'm glad they came up with that. They say what we always should keep is have a quality focus within our teams, and we'll keep that as a team. And we need to do some hardcore testing, and we need to keep on learning because things are changing quite rapidly in an ever-increasing rate. So I noticed that some of the older testers are complaining that some of the younger testers, and if you are a younger tester in this webinar, no offense meant, don't know their basic testing. They don't know their design techniques, for instance. So yeah, maybe we should emphasize more hardcore testing, and maybe we should be more flexible in how we can apply our hardcore knowledge within new context. So that might be great tasks for test managers. But beware before you sit up straight and say, this is a good story. Within within Agile, there is no role for test manager. So we should do something to convince organizations that we have a role, that we have a place. Because they know they have a product owner, they know they have a Scrum Master, but they don't know they need a test manager. So we need to do something, show our added value for that. Well, how is quality achieved in Agile? Some of them are already mentioned in the previous one, but since we combined workshop results and brainstorms, some overlap is there. So quality is achieved, of course, by doing a lot of testing in the sprints, by not having separate test levels, but doing them in the sprint, making everyone responsible. Quality is a fixed thing, of course, so if we need more time to test, we build less functionality, we limit the scope, we migrate continuously, so we get feedback loop, we do production monitoring, we do a lot of integration, of course, and we use tooling, high level of automation and virtualization tools in order to ensure and simulate Agile systems. And when the team makes a failure, it doesn't really matter because we continuously improve. And I think one of the best things to achieve quality is, of course, to make a feature flip, which is on the right upper note, post-it, where we say we work as a team on a complete end-to-end solution rather than just on a siloed system that we need to integrate. But we work on complete solutions that we build from the start, front end to the back end, and we complete the customer journey, and then with fixed quality. So those are some ways that we achieve quality in Agile. And if you look at those things, they're all taken care of. So the traditional test managers list that I showed you, we can gray out some of those stuff, of course. So that makes us think like, what should we do as a test manager? Is there a future for us? And I'd like to share with you, like I promised, some of the settings where I think a test manager actually has a difference. But before I do that, I'd like to make an honesty call. Because if I convince you that there's a value as a test manager in these settings, am I doing the right thing? Because as a test manager, I tend to seek out ways to stay in demand and add my value. But is that what the organizations want? Because organizations don't really care about test managers or something, and they just want their end result. So there might be a message which is bigger than my message, and that is, well, get to do something else, because test managers are a dying race, and there are organizations that limit the test management layers big time, so there might not be a future there. But then still, I believe there is some added value, at least in the following years, because I've been around in organizations where I thought I added value, where my role did add value and was appreciated, and I call that the test manager's role. So let's look into that. The results that I'm going to show you is the results of another workshop that I did with Jan where we discussed settings, and we had a big group. I think about 60 people in the room, where we had brainstorms about what roles do you appreciate the most, where do you think is most value, and what should we do in that role. And I will share those with you. So one thing that we did, we found out a lot of settings, and we did some dot voting, and we have some ones that are more popular, more likely to add value than the other. And this is the ones that I want to explain to you. So I think Test Manager can add value in the following settings. When you have an organization that needs to meet compliance and regulations, you might have somebody thinking about, do we add all the good right things in the tests, and do we have coverage on those regulations? If you're working with more than one team on the same project, you might have some inter-team dependencies, and you want to coordinate the quality and the testing over those teams. Good role for a test manager. If you have formal acceptance, there are settings where that's really important. You might need a test manager. Also, when there's a lot of integration testing needed, you might want to have somebody focusing on getting the integration right. And then you have slightly different roles, I think, but nevertheless also of great value, the more HR manager that is taking care of a lot of testers, of group of testers, and people that are working constantly on getting the test craftsmanship higher in the organization. And I like to introduce those settings by introducing some friends of mine. These are my virtual personas, Stefan, Julian, Andreas. I will start off with them, and they will be telling you what they are doing in their daily job and how they think they can add value. So let us start by Andreas. He's a little bit older and he's gained seniority, so he can play the role as overall test manager. And when you ask him, what's your mission? He says, well, I ensure that all the teams in the project are working on the right tests. And why should you bother about that? He says, well, I want to reduce overlap, prevent gaps, and the teams should work efficiently on overall quality. Interesting mission. So what do you do, Andreas? Well, what Andreas is doing, and you see some of the old test management things in there, like defining the overall quality strategy, watching boundaries between teams. He's doing risk analysis and monitoring the risks. You saw in the list of the earlier workshop that a lot of people do more risk analysis. Well, that's needed in these kind of settings when more than one team are working on the same item. What's also important is to make sure that definitions of done are in line, because there's no use to integrate your software and have as a team that has testing deeply involved on the definition of done and do thorough testing if you integrate that with a team that doesn't have testing at all on the definition of done, just as an example. So you monitor that all the teams do their test coverage, work on the things that are in the quality strategy. If the risk analysis shows that non-functional testing is important, which very often is, somebody should watch over whether they actually do that. And maybe you should help teams to reach an acceptable level of testing. If they have problems with doing proper testing because they're developers and not testers, or whether you think that the testers should learn more, it might be wise to do that. And of course, in the end-to-end testing is necessary. I like this a lot because I gave some presentations about what I think should be basic concept of the Agile test quality, Agile quality strategy. And these 5 items I've presented quite a bit, and I think there's some overlap. They make each other stronger, because it says we need to know as a test manager what we need to test and who's testing it at what stage. We need to provide dashboard information or intelligence about where the project is going or the release is going, so we can maybe change things, set priorities in a different order, or shift load balance work over various teams. We lay responsibilities low in the team, so they should be doing their own tests and they're responsible for their own testing and quality, but we might be auditing the work in order to ensure that that's in place. And if we notice that it's not, we should be coaching them, we should be training them in order to make it better. And then not all the tests might be fitting in a sprint. Think about the end-to-end testing, or tests that need special skills that are not available in the team, like security testing or something. We might need to organize that. We like to have them in the team, but maybe we need to organize that. And it has great benefits. So we enhance the overall quality, we have more risk control, more transparency, we take away bottlenecks, and teams become more efficient if we train them well. But note what Andreas says, I don't want to have uniformity in the way that the teams test, because that's up to them. That's not my task. If we're working towards a single release, they might be thinking about the acceptance. And Andrea or Stefan is the acceptance manager. So he no longer calls himself a test manager, he calls himself an acceptance manager. And he says, I ensure that all the parties that I work with focus on the right things and know what's needed in order to have a formal acceptance. Because I want to succeed our mission as a project or as a release without late surprises. And that's applicable, I think, when you have one system that supports a lot of parts of the organization. So you have different user groups that want to use the system, and you cannot change something without asking them if they're okay. Whether you have one product owner that has no authority to decide, so you have a lot of people that need to decide. And when you're working with different suppliers, so you have contracts, people that are outside your own organization, but you need to work together in order to have that one solution. And you have very often quite a bit of political environment issues there as well, if you have different contracts. So the benefits, of course, that you all work towards the same goal and that you reduce your surprises. And what he's doing, our acceptance manager, he's working on acceptance criteria, make sure that they are included and they are clear. He does a lot of stakeholder management. He keeps track on the progress and stimulates collaboration. And by doing that, he becomes a trusted wing partner. My own experience with this role is when I was building a mobile network. The Dutch telecom was building a mobile network, not for communication by phone, but to have machine-to-machine communication. I was overall a trained test manager. And when I came on the job, I started talking with all the different parties and contractors. And I found out that I was missing something. And what I was missing was we didn't think about how we should accept. So start with the end in mind. What happens if we do all the testing and who's going to accept it? So I looked around and I finally found my project manager and said, are you the one who's going to formally accept the solution if we integrate all the different stuff from the different suppliers? And he said, yes, that's me. He tried to look around whether he could find somebody else, but then he found out that he was the one. So do you understand that your suppliers will probably on the day present you the solution and gift wrap it, because they want to give it on the day and they want to have it accepted and they want to send the invoice. So it's very difficult for you to accept, because can you trust them? How are you going to do that? And I suggested him to say, like, I can be your test manager or your acceptance manager, and I can start a witness process where I engage with the development process and with the different suppliers and talk with them about testing. And I go to them and I say, I offer my knowledge, but I'm also looking for how you deal with the quality and the risks and the problems that you have, in order to know that you took quality seriously and to know that you took your testing seriously. So I trust the quality of the system. So on the day that you gift wrap your solution and go to the acceptance party, then I'll be standing next to you and I'll be saying, hey, they did a good job. They took quality quite seriously, so I think you should trust them if they say it's good. Or if you don't work along with me or you mess up, I'll be telling the other thing. I'll go standing next to the customer and then I'll say, I shouldn't really trust it because, well, they didn't take quality that seriously. And it opened great doors. So we made some witness process where we say we have some goals, we have some activities. The numbers here refer to the paragraphs in the plan, where we say, let's sit together. Let's do some auditing, do some witness processing in order to have quality in there and create transparency on what quality is.